Well, welcome to the Stuff That Growth is Made Up podcast series. Today, we have a wonderful guest, Scott Wozniak, who recently held a workshop with my CEO peer advisory group on a really important topic raving fans, the customer experience engine. And Scott is a highly rated speaker. He's a big, always requested speaker at Vistage. So we were really thrilled to have him. And welcome, Scott. Nice to see you again.
Thanks, Margaret. You too. Man, I'm looking forward to this because if it's anything like the fun conversations we had just recently, this is going to be good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. And I'm thrilled, excited for the listeners to get a chance to hear your background and really, what you're doing to help companies right now. So why don't we start? I'd love to really begin with you sharing your background and how you got to where you are today, really as a subject matter expert in this area.
Yeah, because it's been a wild ride. Okay, so long crazy story short, when I grew up, I was not thinking I would do anything that I'm currently doing. I was on a whole other path. I was actually a child actor, singer, dancer, got on NBC and in high school, middle schools, winning competitions. So everyone said, you got the gift. So I went and got a degree in musical theater performance, did some professional work, woke up in my 20s saying, I don't think this is actually what I want to do with my life. I'll now kind of mentor folks and young folks, and I'll say, hey, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Because, I won the roles, I got a lot of lead roles, but it wasn't really what I loved most. And so, trying to figure out what to do next, I'm like, I want to make a noble difference in the world. So I started working for these nonprofit organizations, youth programs, especially like a summer camp, this kind of tour for parents and teens to get together. We'd go do events in cities for them. And local churches. I mean, really cool stuff for kids. And this is when a lot of so Margaret, I worked. I'm going to say it nicely, but I'll just be blunt. I worked for some really nice guys who were really bad leaders. Now, some of those guys
Mhm.
were great, not all of them, right? But I had this zigzag experience where I'd work for a great leader, and then I'd go work for this guy again. I'm thinking three different scenarios where he was a nice guy. He meant well. He worked hard. He had the good attitude, right? He wasn't like an evil human being. And dang it, we literally ran the organization into the ground. I don't mean like it was annoying. I mean like we failed. We utterly wrecked the thing.
Mm.
And I was trying to figure out what is going on. And I'm talking to a mentor and they started handing me business books. And at first I'm like, listen, I'm like this creative kids guy. Like I don't do this accounting stuff. And he's like, read the books, man. So I did. And I finally, like, first time I started reading one of these leadership business books, I stayed up till 2 a.m. reading the book like it was a novel because I didn't even have words for the process beforehand. I didn't know how to describe the problems. It was leadership and systems and strategy and like, oh, so it just like lit my brain up. So I started reading everything I could, dozens and dozens of books. I went to conferences. I actually got my own coach to work with me through process. And as I started learning this stuff and it started making sense, I kind of like shook my fist at God one day. It's not right. The world's held back for bad leaders. Why isn't somebody doing something? And I kind of got the proverbial elbow going like, yeah, if only somebody would step up and help these people. And so that I think is my calling. It's certainly my passion. How do I help leaders actually build the thing they dream of? And the hard lesson behind this for me was this. Good intentions and hard work is not enough. I mean, yeah, if you don't put in real effort, you're gonna have problems getting your success. But man, it's not just I cared, so I won. There's a system, there's strategy, there's real maturity here that you got to figure out, or all the best effort in the world and you could still flop. Again, great guys who totally ran the thing into the ground. I mean, like I've seen,
Yeah.
and if I could
And
be,
leaders are not doing that intentionally. I mean, they may
no,
think they're good leaders or don't understand
yes,
what their actions, the outcome that is having
yes,
on is. Yep.
and let's be transparent. I was one of those guys who cared, who worked hard, and I didn't know what I was doing. Like I made
Right.
a lot of dumb mistakes. And it's not that it's the problem. I think the danger point is we think it's all good, all bad, right? This is kind of the human bias. We want to simplify things into evil good, like simplify the stuff. And what you usually find is some part of what I'm doing is good and some parts not. And untangling that, figuring out which parts is naturally good and which parts maybe my blind spots or the stuff I didn't. And so trying to figure out how to build a mature, balanced system because it usually works at first and then it doesn't work because you're like the half that I did good worked and then I just keep going and I don't think I need the other half. So, okay, so at the point in the story here, I'm like trying to figure this out. And so like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this for real. So I went back to school, got a master's in business with an emphasis in organizational leadership. That took me out to Virginia Beach. Geography becomes big. So give me a second and we'll wrap up the story with that. But so I graduated high school in Atlanta, but I'd gone off
Hmm.
to work in adventures, lived in Colorado and Arkansas and Missouri and worked in Florida and then up in Virginia Beach. And so I'd bounced around with these various organizations. And out in Virginia Beach, one of my professors connected me to this leadership coaching company, and I started working with them. When I graduated, they hired me full time. Then the founder of that retired and asked me to be his successor. So I took over running this company. And like, I think I've arrived, Margaret. Like, I married my bride, I met my wife out there.
Life was good.
Running this company. We're traveling to London and Singapore, and like I'm having a blast, right? So I come back to Atlanta where my parents are, and this is the crazy final chapter of wild stuff. Is my high school buddies happen to include a guy named Andrew Cathy. Andrew's the grandson of Truett Cathy, who founded Chick-fil-A, and Andrew's the current CEO. But 30 some years ago, I was like, hey, good luck with your mall restaurant. Hope you make it. They're going to make it, Margaret. I think they're going to pull through. They did 22 billion in sales last year. So now 20 years ago, so about 10 years later, I'd had all these adventures and I just started my consulting stuff and I'm rocking and rolling. Maybe done a couple years with this leadership coaching company at this time. And and the kid Chick-fil-A guy said, hey, maybe you should come work for us. And at first I was like, like I said, I'm not a restaurant guy. Like, what are we doing? And they had the weirdest, coolest job, which leads to exactly what I do today. The job was this. We don't want you to run a department. We already have those guys. They're great. We want you to work on the business, not in the business. So literally my job ended up being this. 50% of the time I traveled the world, went inside other companies and just learned. Like they said, hey, we got a guy. Can our guy join your team? Like join the, so I shadow them or be a part of the launch project or interview if they had a certification. If there were certifications, I'd get like all five of them just to see which one was better. I just learned for a living. And then the other half was come back, synthesize all that and turn it into some sort of upgrade. And I'd lead the transformation project at Chick-fil-A. And so I did that for 8 years, had a blast, learned a ton. I mean, like crazy access to the best in the world. And then I wrote some books, and people asked me to speak on the side. And long story short, I felt like it was time to leave Chick-fil-A, build my own firm, which is what I do. Now, the first client to sign me was Chick-fil-A, so I get to keep working with those
Love that.
guys.
Yeah.
But this is what I do. The ride is like I still now I do it for my own firm. We just work with the best companies in the world, go inside, learn all their processes, and then we take that and bring those best practices to people who want to become like the greats in their category. And we're like, oh, here's the playbook, and then we tailor it to their setting. And so yeah, I
I
literally
love that.
to learn what the best in the world do and help others implement that. It's I never would have expected I'd get here, but man, it's better than what my original plans. This is way better. I'm having a blast. So,
It's such an interesting, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And I hear
uh,
it for the second time, and it's like, wow,
that's
what a
what
cool job. And you know what? They just opened a Chick-fil-A not far from my house. They probably in the last 6 months. First of all, the food's really good. And
Mhm.
after hearing your story a few weeks ago, I think of this company a very different way. What an insightful leader. And it's brilliant. It's not even, but to invest, you're still investing in someone to go do
Yeah.
this, and it's
Yeah.
really smart from a strategy perspective, from staying ahead and best in class, because
Mhm.
you get that not necessarily from other fast food restaurants, but you're going to get that from different industries and sectors, and that's the
Exactly.
beauty of it. So,
Well,
what a
if I
cool
could,
job! It's really about learning.
yeah, and if I could be blunt, I mean, we had to go outside the restaurant. We occasionally pick up a nugget from a restaurant. Um, But like we were already number one ranked in our industry and have been for many, many years. But when I was there, one of this has been a life impacting principle. The president, he's now retired, still a mentor of mine. We get together, but the then president, Tim Tassopoulos, a hero of mine, he sat me down and he said, okay, here is one of the principles we got to pursue. Like, why my job? But we're already winning, right? And he said, no, this is the key. We pursue excellence, not success. So
Mm.
success is my performance compared to others, right? Am I beating them or not? But excellence is my performance compared to my potential.
Oh,
So
I love that.
whether or not I'm beating everyone else, am I reaching my potential? And the beauty of this is like success can be good or bad. Like, yeah, let's keep getting better. I mean, I'm not saying we didn't pay attention to competitors and what they did, but like honestly, that's totally secondary, maybe even
Yeah,
tertiary. It's like, dude, who cares whether like we can beat them or not? And this works for a small company who's like, I don't have $22 billion to spend on upgrades. That's fine. What's your
yeah,
potential? Are you reaching it? Or now in Chick-fil-A's land, like we're the highest rated fast food in US and have been for years. Yeah, who cares? Who cares if others think we're better than the competitors? What's our potential? And so this lifelong pursuit of excellence, not success, I gotta say, Margaret, that shifted my thoughts as a leader, as a human, not just as a
absolutely.
business process guy. It's like, because and it's the beauty. Once I grow, after kind of growing into that space, what I find is my potential expands a little bit. And so there's this lifelong learning process of saying, hey, what is our potential? And it
I
starts
love that.
Truett, our founder. Truett said it this way. He didn't say it quite as eloquently as that the first time I saw him, but I heard him say this dozens, maybe 100 times. He would just ask, why not our best? Why not our best? And he would just
I
say it
love that.
twice in a row like that. And it was like, yeah, it's kind of hard
And
to unpack
being
that.
good is not enough. I mean, what I
Like,
love about that is I also what gets me and used to get me excited at work as well is I just love to continue to learn. So
yeah,
by going against your potential, it's what is my potential, and that line just keeps going forward. So it's really
yeah,
again very insightful from a leader perspective, and
yeah,
absolutely applicable to all of us in our lives, our day to day lives.
absolutely.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
cool. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to go back to I love the name, creating raving fans through this client experience engine. Let's just start with, defining what is a raving fan,
Yeah.
and why. And I think it's obvious, but let's make it, as explicit as possible. Why is it something that every company needs to focus on?
Yeah. This is great because I think the immature definition of a raving fan is like a regular customer who is happier. And I guess I hope they're happier, but that's not really the point. We measure and define raving fans by their behaviors. And we actually talk about three behaviors, all of which you can measure in your operations and like actually calculate the ROI of a raving fan. In fact, we have a cool calculator as part of our program. We'll take people through and just like set this up. But this is like math. This is business ROI strategy here. So the first behavior is they buy more often. Then they pay full price. And the third is they tell others to buy from you. Now, how much more often? That's going to depend on you and your industry, right? Some people are going to have lots of frequent transactions. Some people are going to have fewer deals that are bigger. And so you're going to have to figure out what your ratios are that fit your industry, right? If you're a wedding planner, you probably don't want annual repeat customers. Yeah,
Maybe, but
maybe
not for the wrong reasons, right? That's right.
exactly. Exactly. What you probably want, you might want bigger packages. Maybe you want to do like an anniversary package, every 10 years or something. But
Yeah.
but it's going to be different than a restaurant who's like, hey, come back every week, right? Or every month. So that's okay. Like figure out what is appropriate for your setting, but you can put real numbers on it. In fact, I would say this if you're listening and processing this, where we often start with our clients is we say, okay, you probably have some raving fans now. Like go back in the last handful of years and say, who have been the people who are all in, who bought the most, engaged the most? What is it? What size of package did they get? How often did they come back? Like, what if you had more like that? So you don't have to just randomly make up a number. Like look at your actual realistic things and say, man, Margaret was one of our best customers ever, and here's what she did. Okay, what's the number difference between how much she bought and how often compared to regular customers who didn't do that? And there's your buy more often. What is the actual buying behavior difference? Then the second is they pay full price. Now, there's a whole, like we could run a whole podcast on this, but we strongly prefer to avoid discounts. How do you put yourself in a premium position? Now, this doesn't mean premium category. I mean, like Chick-fil-A is still fast food, right? Like it's not a Ruth Chris Steakhouse. You might be a price sensitive market. We work with a lot of construction companies. Great. You can't just charge anything, but you can be in the full price option where you're not discounting your way. That race to the bottom, that is a totally different position than we teach people how to be. Raving fans means you get to be the full price option. You don't win them because you got a discount.
Right.
Discounts erode your credibility and your quality. And
You
so
get them for your service or for your
yes.
product or whatever you're doing above and beyond.
Now, there are
Right.
some industries that have like you're part of a multiple chain, like you're not the maker, you're the distributor, and you don't say I get it. Like it, but the point is you're not winning them on cheap, you're winning them on quality, right? And so not only are they buying more, they're doing it at the full margin price. You're not trying, it's not a loss leader here. And then ultimately, so you can look at pricing strategy and how often, what do they buy at? And then the final one is they tell others to buy from you. And so to track this, you often have to set up a little, I mean, simple stuff like, hey, how did you hear about us? Right? Just start collecting that information. Um, but if you get customers who do a lot of buying behavior from you, who do it at a valuable profit, and then they bring you customers, like this is really high margin, high value business. And so, yes, they do feel better because if you don't create a positive relationship, they're not going to do these cool behaviors. But this isn't just happy feelings in regular business. This is the most profitable high margin way I know to run a company is to get a bunch of those customers. And what we have found in industry after industry is that a core group of raving fans is more valuable to you than a big group of just kind of regular customers who don't really have much of a connection. These
Or
are
happy. I mean, there's a difference between happy and raving.
thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine versus, oh no,
Yeah.
these guys are the best. Yeah, it's the next
Yeah.
level.
Yeah. I think about during the workshop, you asked us, what is a brand that we're a raving fan
Yeah.
on? I use the example of Hoka. I mean, I remember I've been a Hoka user for 10 plus years, probably longer than that, when you couldn't really
Yes.
find them. And then I remember going to Europe and people would stop me because of the sole being so
Oh
thick
yeah.
and higher. So, I mean, it's funny. There's certain products that I could absolutely sell this just because I believe so much or have had such good experiences.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd
Totally.
love for you to share something that, again, new for me since Chick-fil-A was kind of new in New York market or is just continuing to
Right.
expand in the New York market where I live. You gave an example of how they create raving fans with some things that happen with your kids. I'd love for you to share that as an example of what a company, especially when people are saying, oh, my product is very transactional, or
Mm.
so here, this is a fast food restaurant.
Right.
How did they give it an example for our listeners of some things they've done to create some raving fans? I think there's some really good examples you shared before.
Yeah. So I'll zoom out and then I'll go right to that story because it's a favorite.
Okay.
So there are three things. If the heart of this, we just little engine diagram you mentioned earlier, right? The three gears at the heart of the engine are operational excellence, personalized service, and memorable moments. So what we are talking about is the last thing, the memorable moments on how we take fans that have trust and respect and like, hey, this is a good deal, and kick them to that next level where they go raving. And that's the memorable moments, right? So you got to do a couple of like if you're the reason I say this, if the sandwich is bad, I don't care how cool your moment is, right? The food's got to actually
Right.
taste good, right? There's some operational fundamentals we got to get right. There's some
Yeah.
service, personal connection. But let's assume you got some core stuff going. This is how you kick them to the next level. And the key to memorable moments is that you have to make your customer feel like a hero because they work with you, they buy from you. And that's the mistake I did in the early days is I'm trying to get them to talk about me and rave and feel awesome. And I tried to make it like show off how cool I was, and it didn't work. Because the question your customer is asking is, how do I feel about myself when I'm with you? Not how do I feel about you? How do I feel about myself when I'm with you? And so,
I love that. And a real big aha that I remember
yes,
writing down, taking away. Yep.
thank you. And so it was for me too. Big aha, because I did it wrong at first. And I was like, oh. So you create a moment to celebrate them and how awesome they are. Now, Chick-fil-A has chosen to focus a lot of their efforts on parents, grandparents, people who care for kids. Like the family vibe is kind of their family restaurant, family owned. I mean, that's kind of their jam, right? So, So one of the moments that's been one of my favorites is every Valentine's Day in most markets, right? It's not usually right on Valentine's Day. They try not to compete with it, but like, just the day before or after or whatever the weekend is near then. You can sign up for a time slot for a daddy-daughter date. So I've got three daughters. Did this with all three of them, loved it. They've aged out on me, Margaret. They're like in college, and so like they're lovely young ladies, and we have a great relationship. But they don't want to do cute little daddy daughter dates anymore. So, but man, there was a time. So, you sign up for a time slot like on their Facebook page, or they have a little sign up sheet in the restaurant and like in a bulletin board if you look for it. And they would take about half the restaurant on that night, and they would put black tablecloths down over the tables, and you show up, and they take you to your table and you do table side ordering. They also like gave me a little flower when I came in and I gave it to my daughters. And so they get a flower and we would talk. And I mean, it was the little girl's dream. They got to dress up all frou-frou and eat chicken nuggets. I mean, that's the perfect date for my little girls, right? And so
Love it.
hang out. They even had these cool little cards with like question prompts, like questions for daughters to ask dads or dads to ask daughters, like what was your favorite toy when you were a kid and what'd you love? And super fun stuff. And they made a magical moment out of this. And okay, here's where it like kicks over the top. On the way out, here's what they train the staff to say. Hey, thanks for being the kind of dad that would bring your daughter to an event like this. You know the world
Mm,
dads like you. Oh man. I mean, like
yeah,
right to the heart every time, Margaret. I'm like, oh man, this is the best, right? And now
yeah.
they could have said, isn't Chick-fil-A great? Aren't we cool for putting on a party for you? They didn't. They said, you're a good dad, right? And they do mother son, mother daughter, father son, grandma, grandpa days. I mean, it's just they do one little event every month.
Brilliant.
And
It's brilliant.
and you wonder why people go nuts for this brand. And
Yeah,
if I could be blunt, like the food's good. I don't know, it's not that good. Like, I mean, I
yeah.
said it's really high
Well, it's
quality, but like,
fast food still, but it's still
right,
fast
you're like,
food.
why are
Right,
you
right.
so
Yeah,
nuts on this stuff?
brilliant.
It's because, like, think about my girls. When they go to Chick-fil-A, it tastes like that. In the back of their brain, they have this association with
Yeah,
daddy-daughter date night and Chick-fil-A. It's more than just a practical product for them. This is like an emotional experience that makes them say, like, I love those guys. When in doubt,
yeah,
like they get you're on the fence, they're going to win that tiebreaker with any other fast food joint anytime, because their customers feel awesome when they buy from you. That's
yeah.
how you do this. And so
I love that.
that's the next level where you go, like, yeah, if you don't have a good product, okay, fix your
Right.
but like you can go well beyond like, it's fine. You can create this kind of emotional connection that really is puts you in a different category than everyone else.
When I am listening to this for a second time, and again, I do think it's brilliant. I said that before, but American Girl did something similar because I
Yes.
remember with my kids, they bought this doll and then we went to lunch.
Oh
And there
yeah.
was a place for the doll to sit, and there were cards, and it was just this experience that was really special. You could take them to the hair salon. I mean, it
Oh
was this
yeah.
whole thing, but it's really so smart. Well, thank you for sharing that. So you talked about that if you think of this engine about
Mhm.
creating raving fans, the memorable moments is one. You talked about processes. Is there anything you just want to touch on in terms of the other two, a little bit more detail?
Yeah.
I know we have limited time, but I want to make sure you know,
Yeah, it's
get
good. The,
some
the
chance to
biggest
talk about that.
gear is the first gear, and that's operational excellence. Like when I draw it out, I make that one bigger than the others because I do think this is the one we can kind of skip. I see people get excited about the fancy stuff and they skip the
Hmm.
fundamentals. Like, yeah, the fundamentals are boring. And this is the key. The first question, we say operational excellence is first in sequence and in priority because the question they ask first above all is, can I trust you? Can I
Hmm.
trust you? And if they don't trust you, I don't care how fancy or cool you are. And I see this happen where we've got a creative leader who's got these cool creative ideas, but the operations are inconsistent. And that's the thing. Excellence is not how fancy can you be, it's how consistent can you be. And the hard truth here is that inconsistent excellence earns the same trust as consistent failure. Getting it right most of the time, I mean, like sort of, 75, 80% of the time is still enough to say, I just can't trust you. You've got to get 90, 95, 98% consistent, not on everything, but on a few fundamentals. I mean, think about restaurants or the dolls. Like, if the doll, falls apart or the food is cold and soggy, I mean, like it's cold, soggy fries. I don't care how nice you are to me. If you give me bad food, this isn't.
Right.
It's a few fundamentals you have to just nail where they don't have to worry about it. The fast food example that maybe everyone will relate to is if you have to check the bag before you drive away, they don't trust you. Like, maybe you get
Is
it,
everything in there?
but
Yeah.
if you have to check the bag because you're not sure they're going to get it right, there's your signal. And what's that look like for you in your space? Do they have to check the package? Do they have to check the product? Like, if they can't just know, oh yeah, these guys got this, then your fancy stuff doesn't work. So that's the first thing I would say. And then the second gear, that is again smaller, like the memorable moments one, is personalized service, and it's all about making a human connection. The question they're asking is, do you care about me? Do you care about me as a person? Do I matter here? Or is this just another transaction? So, can I trust you? Operational excellence. Do you care about me? A personal service connection. And then we do the memorable moments where they start asking, how do I feel about myself when I'm with you? So, the combo of these three things, this is the magic. I mean, it feels like magic on the back end, and it turns
Yeah.
out it's not magic. It's just a set of systems. These are all tactical things you can do, and you build these engines, and piece by piece, when you put each gear in place and then combine them, the output is a raving fan. It's just how humans work.
It's so interesting as you're talking about this. It really does go back to the comment you meant about memorable experiences. Is how do each of these things make the person feel? Do they feel
Yes.
they can trust you? Do
Yes.
you care about me as a person, or is this a transaction? And wow, how do I feel in this memorable moment of taking my daughter or whoever to this special
Mhm.
place? So it's an interesting thing. Maybe it's not meant to be that way, but that's kind of what was just the
No, I
aha
I
that came
I
out right
love
now.
that. I
Yeah,
think you totally cut to the
yeah,
heart of it there, Margaret. That's good
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
I love that. Well, thanks for sharing. So there's one other topic that I'm a true believer in. One of the responsibilities I had in my old job was the demand side of our business. So everything that touched the client. So this topic is near and dear to my heart in general, just this whole client experience, because I do think if people want profitable growth, you got to get this right.
Yep.
The raving fan piece of it. So um, we talked about, and would love for you just to touch on: is it an input? Is it an output? The customer experience engine is pretty tied to the employee
Yes.
engine. So can you just talk about that connection and why that's important?
Yeah. For leaders, those of you listening to this, often the way we'll say it is your customer is probably your employees. Like most of us aren't doing as much of the frontline service. Like we built something and we have a team and hopefully it's expanded past you. Maybe you're still doing a little, but your primary customer is actually not the people who buy from you. We set our teams up to be raving fans and have a great empowered experience, and they're the ones that deliver this program for our folks. And this kind of link from leader to staff to customer, this is the necessary progression of how this thing works. We've got to have a great employee experience if we want a great customer experience. And there's all sorts of studies and high correlations between these two, employee churn, customer churn. I mean, all this stuff. But it's humans. I mean, some of the same fundamental questions are being wrestled with. Now, the tactics change. This is why we would call it a separate engine, sort of, right? As you mentioned, they're very tightly connected. But the way I build employee trust might be different than how I do customer trust. But the first question they're asking is, can I trust you? And the sad truth, Margaret, is most people, I mean, the vast majority of people, when you do these surveys, they don't actually trust the management, the frontline staff. That default mode, if you think about how people chat about the boss and the work and all that stuff, people walk into your company untrusting and you have to earn that. That the assumption is the opposite. And so how do we earn trust with our team? And we talk about that being a fair deal. Like there's clarity on how the rules at work. What does it take to win in this place? And are we consistent with the rules? Do we have bias built into there? Or maybe what I'll find is not so much companies with bias. More and more I find companies who are just unclear. They're vague. They don't
Yeah,
spell how the rules of operation work. And so they make the people guess. They make them guess operationally. They make them guess on how you get promoted. And maybe you have this little process you work behind the scenes, but because you don't tell anyone, they don't know. So they make up stories and man, they'll make up crazy stories, right? And so getting really clear and consistent and fair on the basic operations and making sure everyone feels safe and transparent, like some fundamentals, a good provide them enough tools to do the job, right? They have actually, doesn't matter how hype you get if they don't have the right tools. And so there's some fundamentals. And then we get into real community because the question they're asking is, do you care? Do these people I work with care? Do we even know? So how do we build real community on the team? And that sounds fluffy, but we actually have tactical things you do, from helping know people getting know and are known from others, to how do we practically serve each other and how do you express appreciation in the office? And so like some tactical stuff you put together to create community. And then the final one they're asking is, how do I feel about myself when I'm at work? You see the pattern here, right? Now,
Hmm.
the way we do that is we connect the work to the bigger purpose because every one of our companies is somehow making people's lives better. They don't care about your thing.
Yeah.
They care how your thing makes their life better. We do have positive impact. And we often totally miss that. I mean, I was talking to a guy just this morning about this before this. He's like, oh yeah, the finance team doesn't get connected to like there. We don't do the frontline stuff. We collect the bills. And it's like, yeah, but if you don't do that, we don't, none of us have a job. And if we don't have a job, our customers don't get served. And so sometimes you have to connect the dots to make sure everybody sees how what I do day to day directly impacts how we help other people. And they have to see how their work is tied to a bigger purpose. And when you pull all this stuff together, you get employees who see that they matter, who feel safe and cared for, who have the tools and the trust to do the job, and they show up with excellence. And those people are the kind of people that show up and build the kind of trust and excellence with your team that allow them to feel like, man, we're going to, it all comes together. And so we have
Yeah.
the picture you saw. It's we
Yeah.
said two engines. It's really one big engine with two halves kind of feeding into each other.
Yeah.
You really need each other. So like if you don't hire great people, you can't do the great service. And if you do great service, guess what? It's actually easier to find and keep great people because they're going to be drawn to the kind of company that has this purpose and mission and impact on the world. And so when you put those two things together, I mean, the metaphor we use is like the engines. If you lift up the hood on all great companies, this is what's underneath the hood. This is
Yeah.
what's driving their success. They found and empowered great people, and those people created the kind of customer experience that turned into raving fans. You figure this out, you win. I mean, this is the game.
Yeah. Love that. Thank you for sharing that. And you're creating raving fans with your own employees who then want to talk about and feel good
Yes.
about what they represent. And you see it in their enthusiasm and everything they do. So,
Mhm.
big believer. Love this stuff. Thank you
Yes,
for
ma'am.
sharing. So, in closing, you've been very generous with your time. Is there anything else on this topic that we didn't touch on that you think we should,
Yeah,
the listeners should hear before we move on?
I would just maybe I'll end with an encouragement. We started by talking about the profitable, I mean, it's beautiful, right? The high margin, high value. There's a ton of money in this. That's true. But what gets me more excited than that is that there's actually a ton of meaning and purpose in this. This has become a way over time. Remember, I started like I'm trying to make a difference in the world, and when I've come around to, I think this might be one of the most valuable ways to make the world a better place. Like my personal calling, and I'll call up you listening to this too. Like this, think about this. We're going to show up and build trust. We're going to make them feel cared for and valued. We're going to make them celebrate them once in a while and be like, you're doing something right with your life. Are we doing that because we want to make more money, or are we doing that because we want to make the world better? Yes, right? Like if you do this, you don't have to pick between making money and somehow making a life of no
Yeah.
meaning. This literally becomes the way we live and build a legacy of positive impact on the world. And so I just challenge you, like part of my resistance to the Chick-fil-A job in the day is like it's fast food, right? I'm trying to do cool stuff. And now I'm like, man, they are actually doing some really good. If you like look close, the leadership development they do with their employees and the making the dads feel like they matter. Like in the zones they focused on, there are a lot of people who would say my life is better because of this, and it's still a fast food joint. Like I
Yeah.
bet what you're doing, a listener, right? You're probably have something even more noble intrinsically and cool than fast food. If a fast food company can make a positive influence on the world, you can too. And then, so that'd be my challenge is, man, you don't have to pick. between noble and profitable. If you look far enough down the road, what it turns out is the most profitable engine I know also turns out to be the most noble way of running a company I've ever found. We can build meaning and make money all at the same time if you build these engines.
Yeah, it's a great note to end on, but I'm not ending yet because I have two other
Okay.
questions for you.
Come on, come
One
on.
is, okay, you talked about you read a lot of books. So what is your favorite business book? What's the book that made the biggest difference to you?
Gosh, that's a hard thing. Okay, so I can give you a few. I don't know if I could pick
Okay.
single one because I read a ton. I mean, like hundreds of books a year, literally. I read a lot. It's part of it's I travel a ton, and part of it is maybe this will be the best part for somebody. Forget the other things. I was challenged 20 years ago on this. That we can listen faster than most of us think. And if you just train the brain and process it, when I started, I couldn't go more than probably 5, 7 minutes on podcasts before, like, I just find myself zoning out. But I pushed myself, and over years, I got faster. Like, not only could I get to like my full commute to the office, listening and still processing, you can start, now if you notice, you can fiddle with the playback speed. So I started fiddling with that, and I've got myself up really high on playback speed. So between my travel and playback speed, anyway, so that's all a way to say like there's so many books. I would say one of the best is Good to Great by Jim Collins. I mean, it's just an original classic.
Classic. Yep.
We read it multiple times, and every time I'm like, this is just one of the fundamentals. And we got to work with Jim. We brought him in while I was at Chick-fil-A and was like, hey, come help us
Yeah,
think
that
some
must
of
have
our
been
stuff.
fun. Yeah,
So good
all of
stuff.
his books are really good. Yeah. One that
Yes.
stands out for me that I've read in the last year or two, actually, one of my CEO members talked about it, and you and I mentioned it, unconscious, or no, why am I spacing out? Hospitality.
Oh,
Um,
oh, yes. Come on. Will Guidara's book, Unreasonable Hospitality.
Thank you. Unreasonable Hospitality is fabulous.
So
Talking
good.
about a lot of the things you're talking about. How do you make this memorable experience?
100%. And
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
say
love
another
that.
one in this category is The Experience Economy by Jim Gilmore and Joseph Pine.
Hmm,
Phenomenal read about how we started off with kind of commodities. I'll give you the very short version, right? Think birthdays. Back in the day, if you were going to do a birthday party, you'd go to the grocery store and you'd buy flour, milk, eggs, salt, right? And you would bake your own cake and host your own party. And then we went from commodities to like processed goods economy where you would go buy a cake, right? And you don't just do that. And then you get to the point now, though, you're in the experience economy. You don't
yeah,
buy cake. You go to a cool hangout place for your kids, the trampoline place or something, right? And you buy a party. Oh, cake included. Cake is just one of the things you buying the package. And so more and more industries have shifted where we're not just selling the thing,
yeah.
you're selling the experience around the thing. And so that one, if you liked the conversation we had today, I would highly recommend the experience economy. By the way, second edition. They put two out. The first one's good. The second one, like 10 years later, and it's so much better. So second edition.
Okay, good. All right. And then my
Yeah.
last question for you, and I will let you go, is besides speaking at Vistage meetings, which is how you and I got connected, what, it sounds like you have this consulting business. So
Yeah.
if someone wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that? And I assume it's through this engine that you're helping companies, but if you want to give a 30-second commercial, that would be great.
Yeah, so swozconsulting.com is the best place to find out more about us and our services. That's SWOZ consulting.com. So swozconsulting.com, and then you can learn, and there's also like schedule a call, and my team will talk through whatever you're interested in, kind of give you options. We have everything from an online program that just says, hey, I just want all the tools. I don't need live consultants. It's all the stuff we do with our big, deep clients, but videos and tools and all the stuff to explain and all the interactive things. You get your own version of that. We call that legendarybrandsacademy.com. How do you build a legendary brand? So legendarybrandsacademy.com is that one. But if you want us to work with you, this is where we also have teams of people. We'll come in. I've got 23 folks on staff, I think. Just hired somebody recently. So we'll show up, and what most typically we start with is an assessment of your current experience and operations. Like, how are we doing, whether customer side or employee side? And then we map your current process, and then we compare that to best practices in your industry, and then we give you a strategic plan on how you can upgrade. Like, you're great here,
Great.
but this is the part you're missing. You need to add this or tweak this. And then we map out here's the way you would do that and give you the tools. And then sometimes clients after that will say, hey, why don't you stay around and help us actually build all those things and implement? But this is where we spend most of our time is down in the weeds on like actually building the stuff. And so if you want
Love that.
ideas, I've got a book, we got an online program. If you want consultants to help you build your own stuff, then yeah, this is what we do. We got teams to help do that. So go to swazconsulting.com, check us out.
Perfect.
We're glad to help you build your engine.
Got it. Well, first of all, Scott, a big thank you for your time. You've been very generous. This has
Oh
gone
yeah.
much longer than we typically do, but I think it was worth every minute of that. And to our listeners, I hope you've enjoyed this. This is the stuff that growth is made of. See you next month.